Hello friends, welcome back. In this video, we are going to work on the rest of the pages like manage students, marks, scores, fees, etc. As I stated earlier that it's very hard for me to do the code along session for all the pages because there is too much code to write. So instead what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the most complex page in my opinion, the student page, the manage student page. So I will go do the code walkthrough on the student manage page. And I believe if you can follow up this code, rest of all the implementations is just it's not exactly the copy paste, but it's very similar to this implementation. So I will do the detailed code walkthrough of the manage student page, and rest of the page, as I stated earlier, is going to be very similar in nature. In case if you have any trouble, if you want to make any changes, please feel free to open an issue to my GitHub repository, and I'll be happy to help you out. So let's get started. Now in the student manage page, as you can see, this is one page, but there are three or four different screens. So for example, this is the search screen. And if you click on this add button, this is the add screen. And as you can see, this add screen, it has the expansion tiles because there's too much data to write. So in any case, like if you have too much information you want to save for anything, like for example in a student, I want to save a lot of information like ID, passcode, first name, last name, father's name, guardian's name, on the addresses. Suppose a student have different addresses like mailing address or communication address, or the physical address, a permanent address, temporary address. So it's a good idea to hide all those information inside one collapsible menu. So fortunately, as you can see, this is built in Angular material. It gives you a very nice looking GUI field, and also like it's a collapsible menu. So you will see in a minute like how you can design this information. So again, going back to that, the student page, this is the second screen. This is the add menu, and third option is the result menu. So suppose you want to like display the result. Fourth option is the student edit. So as you can see, the edit is very similar to the add information. The only difference is it will come back with the records which students already has. Now let's go to the student profile page. So again, profile page is very similar to the student manage page. Remember, the difference is here, as you can see, there is no add or edit or update thing. The idea is student will see the view only his information, but he will not be able to make any change. The reason is only admin or the person with the appropriate authorized role can only make this change. So as you can see, this view page is going to be a copy paste of the manage page. The only difference is you get rid of all the other views. So let's go back to the manage student one more time. So just to recap, there is a search window, there is a add window or panel or page, whatever you want to call it. There is a I mean the result window, add, edit, search, and results. So there are four different screens. The idea is like you can have four different components, but what I have done instead, I have coded everything in one Typescript file. It's up to you. It's a design pattern. If you want, like you can have four different Typescript files. But just like if you want to do that, please feel free to do that. Okay. In my case, let's get it started, and I'm going to build those four different windows into the student dot component. This time, unlike other implementation, I'm going to start with the Typescript file. So inside the Typescript file, first thing I'm going to import on init. I'm going to also import the on destroy, and I'm going to import the view child. The reason I'm doing that, let's go back, because I will be referring a lot back to the material, Angular material window, Angular material components here. So let me just open this thing here. So first thing I'm going to do, as you can see, because the result window will be made in material data table, which is the most complex piece of it. It looks complex, but actually it is not. It's very simple implementation if you follow their data table examples. And the examples I will be using is, I want to use an examples which has almost everything. And what I mean by everything is it has a search filter. That means you can search. It also has the very nice pagination. Okay, you can just do the pagination here, and a filter, and also the sorting order. So this is a very nice data table. What I want to do, I want to have this data table implemented for my student grade here. Okay, so let's go. And to do that, you will need the view child. That's why I'm importing the view child library here. Next things I want to do here, I want to include couple of more animations. So again, these two packages are optional, move in and fall in. But in case like, it's just a, let me show you what this means. Okay, so suppose you are in some other page. Okay, see the animation. So animation is like, you can it's a fade in animation, it's a swipe in, so it's just like, gives you a very nice professional look and feel to your app. So I highly recommend you using that. Okay, and it's very simple to use. Just import these two libraries. Okay, and you have to import couple of, into your inside your component, you have to import that. I'll show you that in a minute, but first let's just finish importing all the other packages. So I will need the data source again, if you're wondering where this is coming from. So hang on, this data table, Typescript, and you will see that I will need all of this component here: mat sort, mat table, data source, etc. Data source, etc. Okay. Now let's go import all of this mat paginator, mat sort, and mat table data source from Angular material. I'm also going to include the backend service. That's pretty much it. Okay, now if you want to have your animations, you have to include that into your component. So inside the component, I'm going to use one of this, but I'm just going to add move in and fall into this animations array. Okay, host is moving. So what this means is, as soon as the component is initialized, it will initialize with an effect. The screen will be a moving animation. That's, if you just don't want that, feel free to, get rid of this one. Otherwise, I think it's a good idea to include that. Okay, now let's go implement that on init method, and I'm also going to go use the on destroy. The reason I'm going to use on destroy is because I know I will be subscribing to the, a lot of observables. So whenever you subscribe to an observable, the good thing is, like, in Angular, it out of the box it give you an async method. If you are using async method inside your HTML file, you do not need to explicitly define on destroy. But if you are capturing all the observable inside a variable, I think it's always a good idea to, destroy that unsubscribe to that observable in on destroy. I'll show you that in a minute. What do it mean? But before I do that, I want to have a couple of variables here. You will see those later, like what are these variables, where I'm using it. But couple of variables, if you follow up my last videos, you will be already familiar, like save changes, error message, data loading is for showing spinner. So a couple of things are new here. Members data source is of type mat table data source, and I will, once we start working on the grid portion of it, you will understand why, how this is used. Okay, now private query subscription, this is a query subscription is whatever result. That's what I was talking about, using that in on destroy. So if you are if you have an observable which is getting the data, which is getting asynchronous data from the database, you always want to capture those inside the query description, and on destroy you have to you have to unsubscribe to that observable. Okay, now, so data table, it's very, simple implementation. To do that, actually, you have to define the two view childs here. If you are using paginator and mat sort, and I've shown you what that paginator and mat sort means, that if you want to sort your, if you have a table and if you want to put the sorting order, you have to use the mat sort. And if you want to have this page in paginator, you have to include those packages here. Okay, so I'm just borrowing this code from here. You have to define those things as a view child. Okay, so let's finish this out. View child, mat paginator, and mat sort. Displayed columns. So in this case, in their case, as you can see, they have 4 columns: ID, name, progress, and color. In my case, I want to have a student ID, student name, and the document ID. So, actually, I should have put the name and full name or description is ID, but actually my form values, I have set up the student ID, student name is equals to code, and the student full name is equals to description. So that's why it's like that. Please feel free to change that if you're not happy with the naming convention here. Okay, then I want to include couple of more observable here: fee code, marks code, and enrollment code. I will again come back to this, what these things are. Okay, but if you remember, actually every student is supposed to have one fee code, one marks code, and one enrollment code. Okay, now the couple of other variables I will need for the file upload. So let me just declare those things as well. Okay, now inside my constructor, as you can see, I'm going to create an instance of the backend service. Is going to be a private backend service here. Now let's go and ng on init, and first thing is I'm going to put the ng on this try. So that's what I was talking about. If the query subscription exists, you just need to unsubscribe that. Okay. Now inside that ng on init, so toggle field, what is toggle field? As I said, I'm going to create a toggle field so that I can control the behavior. So user will be toggling between among four screens like add, edit, search, and results. So for example, when the first component first appears, I do not want to show the results window. Instead, I want to show the search mode. So there will be four different modes: search mode, add, edit, results. So as soon as the component is initialized, I want search mode. That means the search results, search window to appear. So that's how I'm controlling this behavior here. Okay. Next thing is, again, you have to initialize your data source table. So data source, actually data source, again, as I said, is a new instance of the mat table data source class. So, and I'm going to initialize this with a blank variable called this.members. So members, as you can see, is an any array. There's nothing inside that. You just need to initialize with the blank. And why I'm doing that? So again, suppose you have hundreds and thousands of records in your Firebase. Never initialize. That's the I could have shown the when your component is initialized, I'm showing a search window. I'm not showing a result window. Why? Because you do not want to hit your database. The databases like Firebase or MongoDB, they charge you per call. So I want to limit the whatever I'm pulling from the database. So please limit your database calls so that you can save money. Pull the data from the Firebase only what you want to use. Okay, do not put everything. Otherwise, you will end up having hundreds of dollars bill from the Firebase. Okay. So that's why I'm just going to first screen I'm going to show is the search window, and then I'm not going to fetch any data from the Firebase yet. Okay. Again, this is a design pattern. If you want to fetch the data from the Firebase, up to you. But again, you have to bear the cost. Now, I'm going to create a couple of other methods. For example, fee code, marks code, and enrollment code. I'm just going to, right now, as you can see, I will declare those three methods in a minute. Okay. Now, I think that's pretty much it on my ng on init. Next thing I want to do here, I want to have the toggle. So I will create that method called toggle. What toggle is going to do is going to allow, like if you click on this or click on this button is going to help you. I'm going to call this function so that user can toggle between the screens. Okay. Now, if you toggle will accept a filter. It's an optional. If filter is not there, then by default show the search screen. Second thing is whatever the toggle value is coming, you just need to uh, switch that screen. So for example, if I call toggle edit, so it will show you toggle edit. That's pretty much it. Next thing I want to do here, let's define these three methods. Get enrollment code. So enrollment code, if you remember, these are the enrollment code. So enrollment code again is a functionality that means so for example, how do you know that this student belongs to which class? So you can have as many enrollment codes as you want. So for example, I have one enrollment, you can attach the enrollment codes to the students, and that's how you know that this student belongs to this particular grade. Okay, same thing similar to the enrollment code. So first thing, as I want a data spinner to show, that's why I will just say data loading equals to true, and then I will get a query subscription and I will get the docs. So again, I'm going to declare this method get docs into the backend service. In my past video, you saw I use the method like generic method, say get doc or set doc and get docs, things like that. So I'm just going to pass the enrollment code that I want the enrollment code from the Firebase collections, and that's why I'm calling a generic method called get docs. Okay, next thing is I'm going to subscribe to this observable, and whatever the results comes, I'm going to assign this to enrollment code observable here. Okay, let me again, if this comes back with an error, I'm going to include the error into my subscription method here. Last thing is, once this is done, the data loading equals to false. That means stop showing the spinner. Okay, now let's go similar to this function get enrollment codes. Let me define marks code as well. Same thing, but instead here I'm just going to say I'm going to use the same generic method, but this time I'm querying the marks code collection here. Okay, same that. Okay, now the last thing I want to do here, fee codes, just like that. Other methods, this time I'm just going to query the fee code collections. Perfect. So now all these three methods are done. Okay. Now let's go start working. There are a couple of other methods I will need. Get data. Now what is get data? So for example, let's go to the manage student window here. So see, there's a difference between get data and get doc. What get data is, suppose that's what I meant, like for in the beginning there is no data fetched from the server, but if I click on this get data, this cache data, so what this is going to do is going to get to the server and it will fetch the data from the server. So that's how this get data is going to do. As you can see, it's optional field. So for example, if I go through the search and click on this search, is still going to call the same method get data, but form data. So this time is going to say, okay, I am search the data where a student ID is like this or a student first name is like this. If I click on this, it's still going to get data, but the form data will be blank. That means go to the server and fetch the last 20 or 50 results from the Firebase database. Okay, similar to this fee codes, the only difference here is I'm just going to say get docs, and here I'm querying the student collection here. The other difference is I'm passing the form data. So again, when I'm calling this method, I will check if the form data exists. That means put some filter conditions to the SMS collection. That means like go check the SMS underscore students collection, but check only where student ID is like this or student name is like this. If it does not exist, then just go SMS students and pull last 20 or 50 values, whatever you want. Okay. Similar to the other implementation, I'm going to subscribe to this, whatever results comes. Now here is the difference. So earlier for fee code and enrollment code, I was catching those things and putting into these observables here. But here, whatever the value comes, I'm going to store to the data grid. So if you remember, the data source, this is the grid, so this is actually an instance of the mat table data source class. So whatever value comes inside this one is going to show into that grid. Okay, once we code the grid, that means the data table, I keep using the word grid, actually grid or data table or mat data table is the same thing, material data table. So whenever I'm saying the word grid, I'm referring to the data table. Okay, next thing is I'm going to also initiate my paginator and sorting. Okay, again, if you're wondering where this is coming from, okay, just refer to this documentation. Next thing is similar to this, if there is any error, stop showing the, catch the error and show the error message and stop showing the spinner. And if everything finishes fine, you just go and stop showing the spinner. Okay, I think next method I want to see is set data. Now set data is when user try to create a new student here, what he is going to do, I'm going to call this set data. So again, that's the advantage of using generic method. Here I don't need to do anything special. I just called the method called set doc, and for if you remember in my past video, I'm using this one method for multiple things. Set doc, pass the student the collection name and the data you want to save. That's pretty much it. Okay, next thing is very similar to the other implementation. The only difference here is catch the results, and if the result says, if this is positive, that means it was able to successfully write to the database. You just save the changes. That means like show a message that hey, your data has been saved. Now you can now you can you can go move on to other operation. Okay. Otherwise, if you don't do this, your user will never know that data has already been saved. Okay, so the advantage of doing this variable is that okay, you have to show a message that your user's operation has been successful. Okay, last thing I believe I want to do here, update data. Now this was adding the data. So what if the user is going to the edit screen and user click on the update data? Very similar to this one. There's nothing special about this. Just like the set doc, I have a generic method called update doc. Now, unlike set doc, update doc accepts three parameters: collection name, and the ID name. That means document ID, which is it is going to update, and the updated values there. Okay, that's pretty much it. Similar to the other things, I'm going to catch the error. If there is an error, just show the error. Okay. Now the get doc. Get doc is when the user clicks on one document and he wants to see suppose you have 10 students showing in your grid and you want to see one document. So it's very simple to this. Okay. Take the document ID and get doc. Get doc, just query the collections name SMS student for this document ID. Okay, now here I'm doing a little bit different. So remember, like, so if I click on this grid, sorry, it's not working because it's not compiling. Otherwise I would have shown you. So pretend that there's a, you are seeing the number of students. If you click on this edit button, what it's going to do is going to get the document and is going to toggle the screen. Then immediately you want to show the edit screen. Otherwise, user will, there's no point, like, user will keep on seeing the same screen. Okay, start it loud. Okay, deck.url. Actually, this is the helper function for getting the document. So let me write one last method here, delete document. As you can see, this is a little bit special. If you click on delete, I do not want just go ahead and delete the document. I think it's a good idea to give one last chance to the user saying, hey, you know what, you really want to delete this record? If user says yes, then perform the operation. If user says no, you have to, abort. And this actually prevents the accidental delete. So a lot of time happens like somebody accidentally click on that icon and he accidentally delete that record. So I think it's a good idea to give user one last chance to delete this record, okay, to confirm that he really wants to delete that record. Same thing like other methods. See, that's the advantage of writing generic functions. Instead of get doc, I'm just accessing the delete doc generic function, and I'm telling that, okay, I want from this collection, I want to delete this document. Perfect. I think that's pretty much it. I believe, oh yeah, one last thing. So there are some generic functions. See, these apply filters. Okay, so these are the functions you have to say on ng on init. You have to, I have already done this, but this is the function you have to, if you want to, like, set up your mat data table correctly, you have to apply this filter. Again, I have a whole new video about the material data table. So if you want to learn more about how to set up the material data table, and I have in my video, I have, like, if you want to use the material data table for PHP, MySQL, MongoDB, I have all different sort of, like, I have done very lengthy videos on that one. I will include a link to this video if you are interested to know more about how to use the material data table in your application. Okay, but here what I'm going to do, I'm going to add these two functions here. Okay, perfect. Now let's go to the student component.html file. Sorry, I covered a lot of things here. Maybe a lot of things are not making sense to you here, but let's go code the HTML side and then you will understand a little better. So first thing is I'm going to include a header. Okay, wait. So inside that header, I will have a page title. I will have a page title icon. And third thing is I want to have help type setting page. Actually, I want to have, like, manage page, something like it, manage student, but I don't have that, so that's why I've just put it right there. Please make sure that you create the help page for this one. If you don't know what help page is, please watch previous video where I've covered how to set up your help. Okay. Next thing is, now I'm going to put a mat card here. Okay, so this is going to be a mat card. Everything is going to be one mat card here. Okay, so to give this animation effect, that's what I was talking about when I added those animations, move in and fall in here. So I'm calling this material data table mat card state. So it's going to give you an effect that that animation effect, that the screen will fall in and replace the other screen. It's very cool animation. Next thing is, as I said earlier, there will be 4 different modes. So I'm going to create a mat card content, and inside that I'm going to have one search mode. Other thing, I want to have add mode, edit mode, and results mode. Now there are 4 different modes. Now you might be wondering, like, how I am showing this only one mode, one screen at a time. So let's go inside this div. Okay, put an ng if statement, and I will say if toggle field equals to search mode, then show this one. Okay, otherwise if it is not, then Again check if toggle field equals to add mode, then show add mode. Okay. Now if it is not, then again check if toggle field equals to edit mode, then show edit mode. Okay, and let me just do this so that you can see better. And if it is not, then show the result mode. Okay, that's how very cleverly you can, I'm using one giant HTML file to achieve this behavior. Okay, now let's go start coding the, start coding the search mode here. Okay, now inside the search mode, as you can see, it's a very simple form with a button, and there are two other icons which allows you to toggle and go to the other screen. Okay. Now, first thing is, again, this is a template driven form, very simple form, search form data equals to ng form. Okay. Now, inside that form, I want to have a search field here. Okay. Search button here, sorry. Okay. Now, by default, this search button, as you can see, is disabled. Okay. Now, when you click on this search button, is going to toggle, is going to the result mode, okay, but it will also get the data. So remember that whatever the values are inside this is going to call that function called get data, and is going to pass that value. Now let's go back to this search student component one more time. Let's go recap that get data one more time. See that recap? So it's accepting a for optional form data value. Here actually I am passing the form data value. Okay. Now let's go. So that's how I'm disabling this. So if it is disabled, if suppose you want to disable this form, if if both of these things are blank, if user puts something in this one, you immediately want to show this up. So there will be two fields in this, code and description. Here I'm saying if both have a blank value, then disable this. So that's how you can achieve this behavior. Again, if you want users to enter both of these things, you can just say, you can change this code. Okay. Now let me create a spacer, and I'm going to create these two icons here. Add new. See that add new, and inside that add new, I'm going to have an add icon here. See, and what this add icon does, it will toggle, it will call the toggle function, and it will say add mode. So let's go to the toggle function one more time. Toggle. See, I'm passing the add field here. So as soon as I click on this and do the add field, that means it's going to switch to it. It will say the now toggle field equals to add mode. Okay, and what happens if the toggle field equals to add mode? It is going to show whatever is inside this show add mode. Okay, so that's how I'm controlling this behavior. Perfect. Now let's go create one more icon for results. Same thing. Here the only difference is I'm toggling the screen to res mode, but I'm again calling the function called get data. Now this time I'm saying, okay, there is no form value. So just go to the server and fetch last 20 values. Now let's go create that form. It's a very simple form. Okay, I think that's pretty much it on the search screen. Okay, so you can see there are two fields, student ID, student first name. Again, totally up to you. If you want to include more fields into the search mode, please feel free to do that. But remember, you have to go and fix your backend service so that you call your Firebase when you are accessing your Firebase database. You have to put more search criteria. That means more where conditions. Okay, now let's go start working on the add mode. Add mode is very simple. I'm calling that not very simple actually. So add data form, and when the user submits the form, is called the set data. Okay, here again, when the user click on the add mode, and if the user is already added, suppose I click on the add, so instead of showing this form, you want to show a message saying, okay, you know what, your saved data, that your data change is saved, and go and fetch that data. So this is what I was talking about. Let's go to set data. So when set data, when user click on the add button, you say, and if it is operation is successful, you say this dot saved data changes equals to true. Okay. Now here you say data is saved, and you have to give an option, click on this thing. So you clear that, and it will toggle back to the search mode. Okay, perfect. Now let's go if the first time if the user sees this. So here, as you can see, I want to create that collapsible menu here. So again, go to the component, and you will see something called collapsible expansion mat panel. So see, this is how you create expansion panel here. So I'm just going to borrow their implementation. Okay. Now, first thing is I'm going to add the submit button, which is in my case, I want to name it add. There will be a clear button. And now let's start creating the form. So again, sorry, I'm doing it very fast because, this is a plain simple HTML form. There's not too many techniques out there. Again, if you want to know more about the forms, I have another tutorial. I will include a link to that tutorial so that you can, see more things about the form. But as you can see, everything is just a copy paste from the earlier implementation. Okay. So here, the first tab, the first panel will be personal data. So I'm saying title is personal data and the description. The reason I'm putting an asterisk, that means there are some fields which are required, and you will see all those fields which are required, they are marked as asterisks. So in some cases, address is optional, so I do not put an asterisk here. Again, totally up to you if you want to change the design. Okay, this is the form. Sorry, again, it's a copy paste because again, totally up to you. If you want to have 10 or 20 other fields, please free to do that. These are all HTML fields. There is there's no special logic anywhere on these fields. Okay, so as you can see, again, just to recap, code, passcode or password or first name, last name, middle name, again, whatever you want, totally up to you. Now let's go create another panel for address, qualification, references, and enrollment. So again, I'm just going to do the fast forward so that you can. Next panel is references details, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the last panel is a little tricky. Enrollment code, fees code, and marks code. Now, if you remember here, see, the only difference is I am pulling the value from the enrollment codes observable here. Now, if you remember on ng on init, I created three different methods: get marks code, get enrollment code, get fee codes. See that? Okay. So here I'm just pulling that from the enrollment codes observable here, and I'm displaying this. Same thing with the fee code, same thing with the marks code. That's pretty much it. Okay. Now let's go. Sorry, I fast forwarded a little too fast. Okay, now inside that edit mode, what is edit mode? Edit mode is a copy paste of the add mode. Nothing changes. The only thing change is, as you can see, so I'm just going to copy paste from the whatever was in the add mode. The only thing is, for every field you have to include this ng model data sync equals to id. Now what this is going to the, remember when you click on that edit mode, so there's a get data, get doc. So what get doc function does, okay, it takes the value and get the data from for that particular student. So here you want to display in the edit mode, you want to display the value coming from that particular student. So that's actually what it is doing everywhere. As you can see, the only difference is I have data dollar, and I'm just pulling that value from the data dollar, and that is the data observable for that particular student. So the last piece I want to cover here, the result mode. So again, let's go to material data table, examples. And this is the example we are using. Let's go view source. So as you can see, it's going to be very simple. First, we need to have a row for the apply filter, which will allow user to to search for the results within the data table. Okay. So let's go here. I'm going to include the icons like add mode or um, the search mode in this case. Okay, now let's include this apply filter row. Perfect. Okay, now let's include the actual table. So this is the data source is going to take the input as the data source. Data source is the data source, which is, if you go to get data. So let's go to the get data. Here, see all the get docs. We are getting everything, and then we are putting the data source, all the results into this data source, which has a new instance of the mat data table class, mat data table source class. Okay, now here mat table, mat sort, and the data source, it will be after the data source. Now the first column, I want to include the student ID, and then is going to be of the code. So student ID, actually I should have changed that, make it an ID, but here it's just like, so now let's go. See, we from the server we are putting the three different columns here: code, description, and ID. So let's go include the code, let's go include the description, and then let's go include the action. Now action is a little bit tricky. So what I mean by that, because inside the action bar, I want to have four different things: edit, delete, and then I have two extra menus: fees and marks. So what it does actually, here I want to call a component for the fees. All I'm doing is calling that component. So when I call that fees component, what I want to do, I want to pass this student ID, so that fees component knows that that fees component has to take the fees for this particular student. Same thing with the marks. So when I access this component, fee component, I want to pass the student ID. So let's go to the fee component for a minute. I want to show you what this actually is. So inside the fee component, you see this is going to take the ID. So what this ID is, actually this is the parameter. I will pass that ID into the parameter. So let's go to the student component.html here. First thing I want to have the edit. So edit is very simple: get row, I get doc, and I'm going to pass the student ID. Now let's go see that get doc function for a minute. Get doc. See that get doc? Get doc, what it does, it takes the document ID, it goes to the server, it queries the SMS student collection, and it says, okay, inside that collection, give me the doc ID, and whatever the value comes, it's grabbed into this data dollar observable here. Okay, so and then you see that's how you fetch that get doc here. Okay. Now one more thing I want to mention. So grab that field and then toggle that screen to the edit mode. So that's how, once you go to the edit mode, it knows, it fetches the data from the server for that particular student, and then that's how it shows the data into that edit window. Okay. Now similar to the edit, I want to have for the delete, same thing. I'm going to pass the student ID. That means the document ID you want to delete. Okay. Now let's create two different options here: fees. Okay, now when I'm saying that here, all I'm doing, I'm calling the router link. That means I'm calling that fee component and I'm passing this row ID as a parameter. Now let's go to app routing.module.ts for a minute, and now you will see this is the fee component. See, that's how I am calling that fee component, and I'm passing this student ID as a parameter. Same thing with the marks. I'm calling that marks component and I'm passing this as a parameter here. Okay. Same thing here, marks, and I pass this row ID, that means the document ID, to the marks component. Okay, and at the last, if you go here, you see at the last you have to include the displayed column list as a header row. Okay, and then you have to include the paginator. I think that's pretty much it. That's all my student component.html. That's all you need to do in this component here. So again, sorry, I'm not going to cover the rest of the things here, but as you can see, you look at any other file. So for example, student view.component.ts, everything is same. Student view is even easier because here I don't have the add page or edit page, or sorry, add page or result page or search page. So all I did is a copy paste of these things and did some minor tweaks, and that's how I include the student view. Same thing with the marks, same thing with the fees. So let's go to the fuse.component.ts. You will see that implementation is like 99% is the same. The only thing is, like, that's the advantage of using generic functions, so that you don't have to, write the code over and over again. I wish I could have, like, did a code along session, but there's too much code to write, so that's why I did the code review session. I hope this helped you a lot. But again, if you have any questions, if you feel free to get stuck, and if you don't understand a function which I didn't cover in this videos, please feel free to open an issue to my GitHub repository, and I'll be happy to help you out. I think that's pretty much on this. I hope, like, this repository helps you a lot. Again, if you want to, this is a community project, so if you want to take it further, do more research, like add more pages, please feel free to do that. I'll be happy to, if just clone this out, enhance this, or if you want, like, in further, like, once we have the more Angular releases, I'll come back, and I will as I make more changes for other clients or anything, I'll happy to update this repository. So please watch out this repository. Any issues, please open the issues. Any comments, please feel free to do, open the, write your comments to these issues. Thank you very much, and once again, happy subscribing, and please look forward to my next series of tutorial. There are a lot of other ERPs I'm working on, like CRM, supply chain, inventory, human capital management, restaurant management, healthcare management. So in future videos, definitely I'll be sharing those codes, those community projects to in my videos. Thank you very much.